Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of RE107, where I take stories I've narrated before and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Pride, written by LgFatherAnthrocite. The door opened, letting in a swirl of orange dust, and a creature that was barely discernible under the heavy gear it was wearing. A brown hide cloak covered it from stooped shoulders to just above the floor. The 2 feet were adorned with thick-soled boots, also made of brown hide. Above the cloak, a shock of white hair topped the head. The rest was obscured by a full-face breather mask. The creature closed the door and walked to the end of the bar. It sat on an empty stool. 2 thick arms emerged from beneath the cloak and pulled the mask up over the head and placed it on the bar. Beneath the mask was a grizzled face of a human. His cheeks were jowly and in need of a shave. His eyebrows looked like 2 snow-white caterpillars getting ready to fight as they bobbled up and down. He set a small cred chip on the bar and waited patiently for the barkeep. After a moment, the barkeep appeared, and the old human muttered a drink order. The barkeep nodded, slid it away, and returned a few seconds later with a stubby brown bottle. He popped the lid, set the bottle down, and picked up the cred chip, then slithered to the register, where he punched a few buttons, registered the transfer, and closed the order. A second later, the chip was back in front of the old man. The old man took a sip out of the bottle and smacked his lips. He then tilted it back and drained half of it in one go. He took a deep breath and seemed to physically relax a little. He continued to sip out of the brown bottle intermittently for several minutes. The door opened again, and several large reptilian Grecs came into the bar. They sat at the table near the old man and shouted to the barkeep to bring them brewed wines. The barkeep set drinks on the tray and slithered over to the table, set the bottles down, and slithered back to the bar. The Grecs were loud in their conversation and rude to the barkeep when ordering refills. The old man had finished a bottle of his drink and had ordered a new one. When one of the Grecs shouted for refills, the bartender nodded at them and went to grab the man his beer before filling the Grec's order. The Grec who had called for refills stood up and approached the old man just as the bartender arrived with his brood. "Forget it, old man, my brood wants a drink." The old man looked at the Grec and said, "You should sit and wait like a civilized being." The Grec turned to the old man and placed a stubby clawed finger on his chest. "The old man should know his place." The Grec pushed the old man's chest, causing him to lean back on his stool. The Grec was turning back to the bartender when the world suddenly slipped upwards. His head slammed into the bar, and the old man's hand held him there, head pinned to the bar, body slumped towards the floor and scrabbling for purchase. The old man leaned in and whispered in his ear, "You should learn manners." He released the Grec's head, and the lizard slammed bodily into the floor. The old man turned to the drink and said, "Thanks," to the bartender, who nodded and pulled out bottles of brewed wine. The Grecs at the table had seen what happened and were approaching the old man. He sipped his drink and set it down with a sigh. He turned and stood up just as the Grecs arrived and helped up their friend. The Grec who fell on the floor stood in front of the old man. His spinal ridges started to raise. The old man looked up at him and asked, "Is your pride worth a broken arm?" The Grec just hissed at him. The old man shook his head and stood straight. When he wasn't slouched, he was nearly a head taller, and his shoulders were wider than the Grec's. He threw back the edges of the hide cloak, and before any of the Grecs could react, he grabbed the angry one's arm, twisted it behind the creature's back, spinning the Grec around in the process, and had the lizard man in a hammerlock before the cloak had time to land against his back. "Let me tell you kids something, because I can tell you haven't hit your first molt yet. Pride is nothing to get worked up over. Pride is what caused the war between our people. Pride nearly wiped out both our species. Cost me 2 goddamn many friends and nightmares. I'll be damned if I don't teach you a lesson about pride. I'm already damned by what your pride made me into." You want to be proud of something, then be proud of how calm and collected you are. Be proud that you can think before you act, and proud that you can learn from these mistakes. Be proud that you can resolve these types of situations with words, not fists. Pride and anger will get you killed, and if you aren't careful, those around you may suffer as well. So, stand up, be proud you learned your lesson, and let me buy the next round to celebrate a lesson learned. The man released the reptile's arm, then waved to the bartender to put the brewed wine on his crit chip, still sitting on the bar. The Grank who caused the incident stood, rubbing his shoulder, eyeing the old man. You fought in the Grek Terror War. I did. You sit with us, teach us more. The old man smiled warmly and picked up his bottle. I would be proud to. End of story. I'd quickly like to thank the T5 peeps, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Bushmaster 177, Henry the Red, Caspar Arnholtz, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Elijah Silvercross, Dragzoon WRE, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.